She slammed the letter on my boat and said, "You have 24 hours to remove this piece of junk from our lake." That's how it started. I was sitting on the deck of my yacht, sipping coffee, when Karen, the HOA president, showed up with 2 men and a smug smile. She pointed at my yacht like it was a crime scene. "This isn't a marina. You're violating HOA regulations." I looked around at the calm, open water. My family had owned this property for generations, long before the HOA even existed. "Karen," I said slowly, "this lake isn't part of your little playground." She scoffed. "Everything in this community falls under my authority." That word of mine hit hard. She loved control. She lived for it. And the way those men beside her laughed told me she'd done this before. A few hours later, a fine notice appeared on my door. $15,000 for illegal mooring and visual obstruction. They even threatened to confiscate the yacht if I didn't comply. I wasn't angry, not yet. I just smiled and took a photo of the notice. Because what Karen didn't know was, I'd been waiting for this moment. See, 3 years earlier, I bought more than just the lake house. I quietly purchased the entire lake legally. Every inch of water was mine, right down to the fishing rights. So when Karen screamed at me the next morning, "You think you can ignore the H?" I simply looked at her and said, "Actually, I think you're trespassing on my property." Her face froze. "What did you just say?" "You heard me," I said, walking closer. "That lake you're trying to find me for? I own it." But she didn't back down. She laughed, loud and fake. "You can't buy a lake, sweetheart." "Oh," I whispered, pulling out my phone. "Wait till you see the paperwork." Her smile faded, and that was the moment she realized she'd picked the wrong man to find. Karen didn't believe me at first. She thought it was another bluff, just like the other homeowners who'd tried to stand up to her. But when I walked into the HOA meeting that evening, holding a thick folder of legal documents, her confidence cracked for the first time. The room went silent when I dropped the file on the table. "That's the deed," I said calmly. "Signed and verified. The lake is privately owned by me." Karen's smile twitched. "That's impossible. The HOA map clearly shows." "Your map," I interrupted, "was drawn after the developer sold this property. You've been enforcing rules on land that doesn't even belong to you." People began whispering. One of the board members, an older man named Rick, cleared his throat. "Karen, is that true?" she snapped. "Quiet, Rick. He's trying to intimidate us." Then she turned back to me, her voice rising. "You can't just waltz in here and make claims until I see proof that Yacht stays fined." I smiled. "Already sent a copy to the county office and the sheriff. They'll confirm it tomorrow." The color drained from her face. But Karen wasn't one to back down gracefully. The next morning, I woke up to flashing blue lights outside my window. 2 men in fake-looking uniforms were standing near my dock, yelling through a bullhorn. "This is HOA security. Step away from the yacht immediately." I almost laughed. They looked like Halloween cops. Shiny badges, no name tags, and plastic belts. Karen stood behind them with her phone out, recording, pretending she was leading a police raid. I stepped out slowly, phone in hand, recording right back. "You boys got a warrant." They hesitated. One of them muttered something about community enforcement. "That's funny," I said, "because this lake doesn't fall under community jurisdiction." I pointed toward the sign near the shore, the one that clearly said, "Private property owned by Jacob Miller. Karen turned red. That sign wasn't there yesterday. Neither were your fake cops, she screamed. Confiscate the boat. That's when a real sheriff's SUV rolled up behind her. He stepped out, looked at the two fake officers, then at me. Mr. Miller, everything all right? I grinned. Perfect timing, Sheriff. These folks were just about to steal my yacht. The sheriff glanced at their badges, then said firmly, Ma'am, those aren't deputies. You want to explain what's going on here? Karen froze, mouth open, and right there in front of the whole neighborhood. Her little authority show started falling apart. Karen tried to talk her way out of it. Sheriff, this man is breaking HOA rules. He's illegally docked on community water. The sheriff gave her a long look, then turned to me. You own this property, correct? I handed him a copy of the deed. Yes, sir. The entire lake and the surrounding easement. Bought it 3 years ago. He took one glance at the county seal and nodded. This looks legitimate. Then he turned back to Karen. Ma'am, this isn't community property. You're trespassing. Karen's jaw dropped. Trespassing me? I'm the HOA president. Exactly, the sheriff said. And you just brought 2 men impersonating law enforcement onto private land. That's a felony. You could feel the silence hit the crowd that had started gathering. Neighbors peeked from their porches, whispering. One of Karen's fake officers started backing away, muttering, We were told it was HOA business. The sheriff raised a brow. You were told wrong. Both of you drop those badges. They obeyed instantly. Karen tried to stop them. Wait, you can't arrest them. They work for me. But her voice cracked halfway through. The sheriff turned toward her again. Ma'am, I suggest you calm down before you dig yourself deeper. She clenched her fists. This isn't over, she hissed at me. You can't just take over our lake and humiliate me in front of everyone. I smiled faintly. Karen, it stopped being your lake the moment you ignored the truth. She stormed off her heels, crunching against the gravel, muttering curses under her breath. But I knew it wasn't over. Karen wasn't the kind of woman who accepted defeat quietly. That night, as the sun went down, I noticed headlights near the lake. A car idled there for a while. No one got out. The next morning, my dock ropes were slashed. The yacht was half floating, half sinking into the cold water. Karen had escalated it, but what she didn't realize was the security cameras around my dock weren't just for show. They recorded everything. And when I checked the footage, there she was, Karen in her nightrobe, cutting the ropes herself, or whispering, Let's see you find this Jacob. I smiled. She wanted war. Fine, I'd give her one, but by the book. The next morning, I walked straight into the sheriff's office with the footage. He didn't even need me to explain. One look at the video, and he sighed. She really did this. Every second's on tape, I said. By noon, Karen's world came crashing down. Patrol cars rolled into the neighborhood, and everyone came out to watch as she was led away in handcuffs, still yelling about her lake. The sheriff looked at me and said quietly, You handled this right. Most folks would have taken revenge. You just showed the truth. I smiled. Best revenge is peace and paperwork. Within a week, the HOA dissolved after the board resigned. Turns out, Karen had been using HOA funds for her security force and fake legal letters. The neighbors, once scared of her, now came to thank me. I rebuilt my dock, parked the yacht back in its spot, and put up a new sign, "Private Lake, opened for good neighbors." Standing there watching the sun reflect off the water, I couldn't help but smile. Karen tried to find me for owning a yacht, but in the end, I owned the lake. And as I started the engine, I whispered the line that made the whole internet remember my story. Never pick a fight with a man who already owns the battlefield. The end.